All right, well, let's finish up Friday's math today. And so we're going to go over some examples similar to the ones that Mr. Walker was going over, just to kind of review. And so we're looking at finding if numbers are factors of other numbers or not, and some of those clues that we can learn that help us understand it easier. And sometimes we just have to divide and find out. But if we know this, we know that 7 times 4 is 28. Those are both factors of 28. And this question asks, is 10 a factor of 28? This is kind of one of those clues. We know that 10 is not going to be a factor of 28 because anything times 10 is going to end in a 0, isn't it? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So we know that 10 cannot be a factor of 28 because anything times 10 ends in a 0. So there's one clue about tens. You can count by tens to know if it's a factor of something or not. And sometimes we don't really know. 3 times something is 54 maybe. We don't really know what because that's way past 3 times 12 is 36. You can count by threes until you got to 54 and see if you got there, like you said. There's a couple other ways I want to show you. First off, you can just divide. So I'm going to pull up my calculator here. And I'm going to type in 54, whoops, got decimal on, 54 divided by 3. If it goes evenly, we know it's a factor, and it sure does. Yeah, so we can just divide on a calculator and find out. If you have access, and I'm going to put one in your slides today, to can you see this number table here? All right, so let me come back to where I am. So we're looking for the number 54. Let's go to our times table here, 54. Okay, so let's look at, here's 3. And let's get all the factors of 3 that go all the way down here. 3. Well, there's no 54s, but it stops at 36. So let's look at this chart and see if we see any 54s anywhere. You help me look as I go through here. I'm going to go down each row looking for a 54. Oh, there's one. 9 times 6 is 54. Huh. Okay. Well, there's a 54. What is this? Oh, that's 9 times 6. 54. So we know 9 times 6 is. And do you remember what he showed us? He showed us that we could break 6 down into 2 times 3. And so, yeah, 3 is a factor of 54 because it's a factor of 6. All right. Is 3 a factor of 78? How can we find out? Well, again, one way is to use our calculator. So let me do 78 divided by 3, and I get 26 with no remainder. So yes, we can just divide and find out that 3 times 26, excuse me, I got a cough today. 3 times 26 is 78. So we can use the calculator and find out. Let's go to that number multiplication chart again. We're looking for, what are we looking for? Keep forgetting. For 78, let's just see. 78, you see them anywhere? I'm not finding any 78s. So we can't really use a multiplication chart for this. So the best way we would have to do for this is just trust our trusty calculator. And we already did that. 78 divided by 3 is 26 with no remainder. So we know it's a factor. All right, moving on. Is 3 a factor of 87? All right, how can we find out? Well, we can just divide 87 divided by 3. Oh, we got it again. Yes, it is, because 87 divided by 3 is 29 with no remainder. So 3 times 29 is 87. So we can divide and find out. You're getting the idea here. All right, is 3 a factor of 94? How can we find out? All right, let's divide again. 94 divided by 3 is, 31.33. So that 0.333 thing means there's a remainder. So the answer is no. So 3 is not a factor of 94 because when you divide, you would get a remainder. Okay. Next slide. Do we need to divide to find out if 5 is a factor of 54? No. Remember what we looked at in the video. 5, anything times 5 is either going to end in a 5 or a 0. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 5 is 20. So it's either going to end in a 5 or a 0. And 54 does not end in a 5 or 0. So we don't need a calculator. We don't need a number chart. We know that no, 5 is not a factor of 54 because 54 does not end in a 5 and it does not end in a 0. How can we easily figure out if 2 is a factor for any number? Well, 2 is an even number. And if the number you're looking at is even, then 2 will always be a factor for that number. So pick whatever number. 136. It ends in a 6, and 6 is an even number, so 2 would be a factor of 136. So if that number is an even number, then it's one of its factors is 2. All right, so simple enough, right? So I want you to take a look at today's assignment, and I want you to work through it using these tricks. If all else fails, you can use our times table that I'm going to put in there today. And you could also use a little calculator. You can type in calculator in your search bar up here and type in calculator and just use that to see if they're factors. Whatever helps you find if it's a factor. Remember, if 5s, 2s, 10s, those are easy. You don't need a calculator for them. So take a look at today's homework and do your best.